Today, AI is changing how fast organizations can move, but speed alone doesn't create value.
What matters is how clearly teams can define the problem, align around outcomes, and make the right decisions before they accelerate.
I'm Clay Richardson, founder and CEO of Digital Fast Forward.
And I'm Steph Lewis, Senior Director of Pega Community and Developer Engagement.
Each episode, we sit down with leaders and practitioners to explore what it really takes to design for value.
And find out how organizations are turning AI-driven speed into meaningful, measurable outcomes.
Welcome to Design to Accelerate.
Conversations on creating value in the age of AI.
Let's go. Welcome to another episode of Accelerating Value in the Age of AI. I'm Clay Richardson, Chief Accelerator with Digital Fast Forward, and I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Stephanie Lewis.
So great to be here and see you all again. I'm super excited about this episode because one of my favorite people is here, Steve Bixby. And I used to work for him. I don't anymore. I miss him. But he is the Senior Vice President of Product Engineering at Pega. And you've got a lot to offer. Not only have you done this, but you've been in the field and you're at the forefront of everything that's going on. So I'm excited to kind of dig into that and get some of the insights from you.
Right. I'm excited too. Thank you, Steph. That was very nice.
Yes.
Glad to be here. Miss you too.
Yeah, of course you do. Yes.
I will tee this up and say you're not one of my favorite people.
Oh, Clay.
Yeah. No. And just for history, right. So when I was at Forrester Research, this is the person that was on the other side of the table when we would do Forrester Wave evaluations. Right. And I just remember some of these wave evaluations where I was like, Steve, you actually built that last night. That was not in the, like when we were scoring.
Product allows you to do that. Therefore, we should be scored accordingly.
And you know what? It's actually fair. I think even during that time, a lot of what I realized was the capability, what Pega was doing is really trying to keep pace, but not just keep pace, but stay ahead, right? And so even this conversation we're having is really about that evolution. I mean, if you think about it, the last wave that I did at Forrester was probably, 10 years ago.
Wow.
Something like that, right? And so much has changed in that time. And maybe just to start up, I mean, I'd love to hear, and we may end up cutting this out. I guess I'll share it like this. What do you see as the thing that has changed the most in the last 12 years? And you're not allowed to just say AI. but right? Like, what do you feel has changed the most in the last 12 years, 10, 12 years?
I think it's probably client expectations have changed the most. People expect software systems to be good. Yeah. And there's still lots of terrible stuff out there, that we're subjected to in our daily life at work. But the bar has been raised. There's so many good experiences to be had out there in all the services that we use, whether it's, food delivery or ride service. Like, these things are made easy. And when even the slightest thing goes wrong, it's like, oh, come on. And those expectations have carried over. We've been saying this for a long time, but I think we're in the age of, self-service. You need to be able to get things done in the moment from your mobile, and that's the expectation. So I think that's what's changed the most. Elevated. AI, of course, is helping with those. I mean, that's how a lot of these tools work.
AI?
Oh, I did.
Beep. You got to pay some money.
But I think it's helping provide those experiences. So, I've always been focused on experience. But the way to provide a great experience is to make sure you have the right solution, the right capabilities, and all of that, and then you layer an experience on top of it.
I think you're teeing this up, right? Because you're not just talking about the features and functions of the application, you're talking about the experience.
Yes.
And as we think about solution design, which is kind of the theme in creating value, it's not about can it do this most amazing thing. It's about the experience of the user and keeping that value of what they're getting from it in mind.
Yeah, very much. I mean, one of the things that we talk about a lot in product development is if you think the design is great, but users aren't adopting it, that's your problem as the software developer. So even if all the functionality is there, but people aren't able to take advantage of it, that's a challenge. So yeah, that falls right into the solution design space as well. You have to build a solution that people are going to actually adopt. It can't just be functional.
It's interesting because since I left Forrester, a lot of my time is out in the field, right? Like literally working with clients, rolling up my sleeves. I left the ivory tower. And one of the challenges that I see, and we worked with a client just recently around, how do we leverage AI to help us drive design? And one of the challenges I saw is clients still focus on feasibility versus like where you are going, desirability. And I'm more amazed because I've lived in this design thinking world, and I think value first, and I think desirability first.
Yeah.
Like, have you seen teams really make that shift, or do you think people still look for this low-hanging fruit?
I think it depends. I think we still see lots of that where people are just going for the low-hanging fruit, and their expectations are low, and then their results are going to be sort of on the low end. If you have high expectations for what you can achieve, I think your chances of achieving that are much greater. There's a quote that, I don't know, Steph, you might remember. I used to have it in my office, actually. I'm not going to say it correctly, but it's something about, if you, sort of compromise on what you think is possible, ultimately what you achieve is going to be compromised in some way, and you disconnect yourself from what you actually want. So having high expectations, I think, is really important. And in the age of AI, when we feel like anything's possible,
why not?
I mean, let's raise the bar, right?
Or just get shitty apps out faster, right? And I think that's the tension at the end of the day is companies, and think about this, right? We're really friends at this table.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's just be honest, right? Like the whole idea of low code, and I'm one of the people that helped launch the direction. I think we got it wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Because it set this premise, and I was kind of careful of this at the time, but it set this premise that the idea is you can build these quick apps and get value. And I think since that time, I've kind of shifted away from this idea. Like, I still believe low code is a thing, but I think, unless you really focus on big problems, big challenges, you really don't get the value. Sometimes you can, but I'm curious, again, we kind of work together on this low code space. Like, what do you think in terms of...
I think it's as true as it's ever been that people are going to create CLAs, which I think is another term, maybe from another analyst. It stands for crappy little apps.
Right, but that's
right?
the
proliferation of these crappy little apps it is just continuing to accelerate. I just got back from reInvent in Vegas last week, and the number of software providers and AWS themselves are creating these tools, these essentially vibe coding tools that have some low code aspects to them. The proliferation is just going to continue because these are not for creating enterprise apps. These are for creating productivity apps and things like that. But CIOs and other IT leaders are seeing these as, maybe that's an answer to our problem. And I think they need to look a lot deeper than that.
And I would say not only the technology, but everything around the technology, right? Because it's like taking what you have today and just putting it into a low-code tool using AI. You're just going to build the same thing. You're not using the creativity or the people looking at the outcomes that we were just talking about, the experience. You don't not just take this, put it into the workflow, you're done, you're set. It's that's why this is still really important to think about the methodology and the roles in addition to the tools to support what you're delivering.
And it's funny you say that. I literally had a conversation with someone yesterday where a customer had approached them and said, can we just replicate our legacy system first, and then maybe we'll reimagine it? And I was like, that's a real missed opportunity.
But what do you think drives the psychology?
Sure, but
what do you think drives the psychology around that? Because I'm always when I hear that, I cringe, right?
That's a great question, actually.
But what do you think drives the psychology?
I hadn't thought about it, but it's possible. It's possibly a lack of sort of imagination or maybe just a belief that would just be too hard. Reimagining would be too hard.
Too slow.
Maybe too slow, too expensive. I don't know, but it's hard for me to put myself in someone's shoes that thinks that way, because I see it as you take the opportunity to reimagine. And in the age of AI, we have so many tools available to us to help us think about how we could do things differently. Like at your fingertips, you can immediately understand, how does someone else do this, or how does this company solve this, or what are the other techniques to solve this problem? So yeah, I love ChatGPT. I love having these tools at my disposal, with Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, because it's like having the smartest person on earth at your beck and call, understanding that they're a little overeager. They sometimes get things wrong, but nonetheless, they know a lot of stuff. It's so valuable. And I think the opportunity to take advantage of that has never been greater when reimagining how you can build these business applications better.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about, with what you shared, that example, this may be counterintuitive, but I think about what is the psychology behind that? I think companies have too much money.
Interesting, yeah.
Right, and the only reason I say that is, if you zoom out, actually replicating something and then reimagining it is wasteful.
Yeah.
Right, at the end of the day, if you look at it, if you just replicate, it's not going to get adopted. That's in general, people are like, so you're moving me to a new app that does the exact same thing as the old app. So you risk adoption. But then the other part of that is like, now you got to go and reimagine, right? And it's like, ultimately, you're gonna spend $5 million or whatever the number is with just replicating, and then you're gonna spend the next amount trying to reimagine, right?
Yeah.
Or decide that it's not worth it, and now you're stuck with the exact same app you've always had.
Right.
We call it instant legacy.
Right. And also, I'm tongue in cheek with this. I realize people just don't have time, which is crazy to me, because you have AI to help you do things and free up time, but people just don't have the time sometimes.
Well, and also I think people are unsure, like what this looks like to kind of do this process. Who are the people in the room? What do they need to know? Like I think there's a lot of uncertainty, so people just go back to what they know. I think that's a big piece of it as well.
Yeah, I do lose sight of that, I think, often. I've been doing this for 25 plus years. You're probably in about the same boat there, Clay.
Not me.
We had hair when we started.
We did. Steph's been at it almost as long.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
It's almost second nature for us to think about, how can we make that business process better, more efficient? How do we eliminate the waste? I don't think that's what people spend all their time. Certainly IT people don't spend their time thinking about the business process, right? They're thinking about the operations, keeping the system up and running, handling, outages and bugs and defects and things like that.
Yeah.
So it is super important that you bring the business, into the equation so that they can offer up, their insights on, well, it would be really nice if, or, oh yeah, there's this whole part of the app that we don't even use that. Which, again, if you replicate something, you're going to replicate all the parts that don't even get used.
And you have to maintain those too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think we have to remember that it's not something that people are constantly thinking. They're not thinking about process improvement all the time.
You mean really? I think about
I know you do.
Well, I don't think about process improvement. I actually think it's a horrible term and we should bury it. I think about experience transformation, right? Going back to what you were saying, same idea, but it's that, even the business doesn't think about process improvement nowadays, right?
How do you make someone more effective, more efficient, and ultimately doing it in a more sustainable and pleasurable and less stressful
and
way.
Really for the client.
I love
Where's my espresso cup? Yeah, it's one of the reasons I love bringing you in is, one, you've been around for a long time, hence, our whole hair situation.
Hence the baldness.
Right,
Yeah,
hence the hair situation. But I wanted to bring you in because I was talking to Steph I said, Steph, what does Steve actually do day to day? Like, what the hell does this guy do? Right? And when she walked me through, and I already knew because obviously I kind of work with you intermittently, but it more amazed me, like, you have both the inner, what's going on with Pega from a, product development, product roadmap, but also you have this external view of, like, the reality of what clients are dealing with, implementing stuff that you've built,
yeah.
Right? So you get to see that full circle of the things you make mistakes on, that whole nine. And that's why we wanted to talk to you about how to think about the value cycle, right? How to go from that initial app, or we don't want to use shitty, but I'm using it, but shitty first app.
Yep.
To actual enterprise-grade production deploy application. And what does that journey look like when we start thinking about the role of AI in design and the role of AI in the actual production?
Yeah, so as Steph mentioned in the opener, I was very fortunate to have spent years in consulting in the field, solving a lot of these same problems. So when I get close to the field, go visit a client, go visit a partner, or sit with a consulting team, I recognize, they have the same challenges today that they did, 15 years ago. We're just solving them a little bit differently, but nonetheless, the business problems are the same. So having that context is really key. When I work with engineers, designers, product managers, and my team, I do sometimes, take for granted that they have similar experiences, but they don't. So trying to get them in front of clients, get them to understand real world problems, often is a really important step in the product development sort of life cycle. Like, if you don't understand the problem really at the scale that our clients are facing, you're not going to build the right solution. I don't remember the second part of your question.
And
I think what I've heard from both of you is, where do people get stuck? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the value cycle is, like, you can get to something pretty quickly with Blueprint, and then what? Like, how do you then get to the end result, bring it to production with the value? Like, are people getting stuck there?
Got it. So you're asking about, you start with something small. How do we get in product development, in developing IT solutions for customers or business solutions? Starting small is always the right way, right? Yep. And to this day, after decades of agile, start small, iterate, people still try to hit the home run. It is constant. But the only way to get started and ensure that you're building a solution that will, one, get adopted, and two, solve the problem, and ultimately get you to a good spot, is to start with that thing that's not good enough. Right. There's a great quote. Again, I don't know who to attribute it to, but it's about startups. If they say, if you're not embarrassed about your MVP product, your first product offering, like your first GA product, you released too late.
That's interesting.
And you have to be willing to say, okay, we're going to get the first MVP, or what we like to call MLP, minimum lovable product at Pega.
That's the desirability.
So if you can get that out and figure out, okay, what is this doing that people are actually able to use? What have we produced in this first version that maybe they're not using? What's not good enough? What's good enough, and we can move on to the next thing. And that's how you set your priorities for the next set of work. And that is truly what agile development is meant to be about.
Supposed to be,
So when we're talking about whether it's Pega Blueprint, where you're saying, I'm going to do my first case type, I'm going to spend a lot of time in Blueprint getting it right, and then we're going to make that available, make it live, maybe do a pilot group of users. That is such a better idea than saying, I'm going to go 10 case types and I'm going to spend 6 months getting it just right, and then I'm going to launch to users.
Let me ask you a question, because we see this again, working with clients where that idea of doing that first case type, clients, the business sponsors are afraid to fund that because they want to know there's commitment to case type 2, case type 3, right? And we hear that all the time. And I'm curious, how do you have that conversation? Like, again, this isn't AI specific, but just how do you have that conversation with people?
Yeah, so people, as you say, people are sort of on a spectrum in terms of how reluctant they are, how eager they are to attack this approach. We worked with a client earlier this year in a blueprint delivered, one of the first clients to really say, okay, we're going to go blueprint and then we're going to go live with this thing. And they actually had a similar sort of hesitancy to say, well, I don't want to split the experience for my end users so that there's only one workflow that's being done with Pega and the others are being done with the legacy system. So what we said was, all right, well, let's do the first iteration. Let's push it all the way through to the production environment because that stuff's critical path. You're going to have to do it,
Anyway.
at some point. Sooner you get that done, the better. Let's knock that out. So we did the first case type, got it through, pushed it to production, and then put a couple of users on it, almost like a user acceptance testing,
UAT,
where you sort of simulate, but it's in the production environment. So now you know that all you have to do is flip the switch to get people onto that system. And they were thinking, oh, we're not going to get there until, I don't remember what the number was exactly, but it was probably like 5 or 6 different workflows they wanted. And ultimately we were able to, because we had the pipeline set, we were able to get to production. After the third workflow, they're like, good enough. Let's get users on this thing now.
Yeah.
So the fact that just through experience, they said, okay, 3 is enough to turn on the faucet, like you said, as opposed to what they were thinking prior to that, which was 5 or 6. I can't remember the exact number, but it was a larger number that probably would have taken twice the amount of time. And you would be all that time would be wasted where you could have been getting valuable feedback from your users that would set your next set of priorities.
And I think with using that right tool, like in the past, it would have taken a long time to just get the one, and then you have to start from scratch and put that. But now with tools like Blueprint, it's not just a Blueprint plug, but with tools like Blueprint,
I know what you're saying.
But like that, you can iterate a lot faster, and you can test it out in a way that brings it to proof of value, and then you can recognize it.
Exactly. And it's funny that, again, we're not just talking about Blueprint, but
Right.
I am the product development person for Blueprint. We built Blueprint. And
so we're going to talk about this.
Well, and but that's how we built that product. Was it started really small. It started so small that it was just a single text box on Pega.com where you would just type something in and it would spit out, oh, hey, this is what a workflow might look like for that one phrase you just typed. That's where it started. That was valuable. It had value. People were like, oh, wow, I never thought about
from day
using
one.
AI to design a workflow. How interesting. And then we just kept building on it, iterating. If we had said we're going to spend a year in development and then launch Blueprint, it would have been a complete miss. We would have all kinds of stuff that wasn't necessary. We would have missed all these things that became super important, and it would have stifled innovation because the user feedback and what we were seeing from the users drove some of the innovations there, like the UI preview, that live preview. That was based on just listening to users being like, wouldn't it be cool if we could see it, see what this thing's going to look like?
So one other quick note on that specifically, with that methodology around it, what was also really cool is we happen to use WebEx, you can use Teams, you can whatever it is, but there's a really, really active space, which by the way, we need to get in the community, but people were so engaged with it, is the most active collaboration space at Pega bar none. Right, so you're involving the users of using it. There's back and forth all the time. So it's driving innovation. It's driving the priority. You're actually real time talking to people that are trying to use this thing. So I think that's the other difference that I've seen from the product team is actually using collaboration as a key mechanism to drive.
Yeah, I think that would be a great takeaway for anyone that's thinking about how could I do this. Provide the feedback loop. It could be as simple as a WebEx channel, a Teams channel, a Slack channel, whatever you're using, just to be able to get feedback directly from your end users. A lot of it's not that great.
Right.
A lot of it is really insightful, though.
But it's not a ticket either.
Yeah.
And
Can you fix this?
And the beauty of these platforms is when you haven't been paying attention to one of those spaces, you can be like, summarize.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you get the summarization of what's happened the last 10 days. You can even ask it for, identify the top 10 enhancement requests that are coming out of this chat.
Right.
Like using AI to gather feedback is something that we've just sort of started to do naturally here.
To drive it.
Yeah, it's super helpful.
One thing, I want to go back to this example you gave of the full cycle, right? The company where they did, MLP1, MLP2,
Yep.
it was the cases. And I'm curious about, like, how do you build the design, do solution design, use Blueprint, but then move it into production? Because that's where we see a lot of teams just stall, right? It's like, we built it, and then they start talking about integration and all these other things,
Yep.
and then it just goes sideways. So how do you think about that?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this is a real, this is what we're here for, is real talk.
Yeah,
real
no,
talk, right?
absolutely. So the threat of implementation is the thing that gets people to sit up straight and go,
Yeah.
wait, now I actually have to think about this problem.
They straighten their backs.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you create this, we're going to do a short iteration and go live, that going live piece drives all kinds of thinking that otherwise just sits at the back of people's minds, and they push down
yes.
and they say, I'm just going to think about the happy path. I'm going to just make sure I focus on the stuff that's easy to think about.
Don't think about security.
Yeah.
Security, authorization, integration, the mapping, all of that stuff. When you do an MLP, it's like, no, you have to bring that stuff forward. You have to think about it now, and everyone has to wrap their head around, oh my God, users are going to be on this system. Right. So you bring all of that stuff forward that I referred to earlier as critical path stuff, stuff that's going to eventually you're going to have to get to. Bringing that earlier in the cycle helps break that sort of pattern of, oh, it all looks good until we get to the end, and then we realize, oh God, we didn't think about this and this and this and this. So the threat of going live even can be enough to get you thinking about all the important things. It's the same thing works for business stakeholders. You go, okay, we're going to import this thing, or we're going to deliver this thing to production as is. This is it. This is what we're going to. This is what your users are going to see. Are you okay with that? That elicits
a whole different
real reaction.
Yes, it's interesting what you're saying, because it makes me think about design thinking, right? And this is cutting through the whole solution design conversation we're having. But the challenge with design thinking was always you're thinking. There's no commitment that the thing we're thinking about over here is ever going to go into the wild. And in a way, what I'm hearing you say is this threat of implementation, I love that, it forces commitment, right? Because that's what was missing in the past. And I would even argue, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, I think that's what's happening a lot with Blueprint right now. If we're just going to go there, it's there are teams that are like, I'm going to, and then, well, okay, we're not going to implement anything. We just want to see how this works. It seems fun, right? And that, getting people to move there, but you still haven't answered my question, right? Okay. Sorry.
Bring it.
Because I think this is real. Is the integration challenge, right? This is always where
it doesn't sit in
it
a silo.
goes sideways, right? We got to integrate with, even if it's one integration point with Salesforce, right? That requires, this is like classic engineer, how many engineers does it take to screw a light bulb? How many engineers does it take to create an API call? And actually, it's not even create it, it's just integrate.
Yeah.
How do you get people to have that conversation but not let the integration be the derailer? I want to go specifically to that, because AI is not going to, well, maybe AI will fix that, but.
So it helps in some ways. So if we were to take, the way you would do this in Pega today, you would build your blueprint, you would identify the data source, Salesforce in this case. If you have the YAML or any of the other information that describes the schema that you need, great. If you don't, that's okay too. And in fact, a lot of times you're just going to want to describe it in using the fields that you care about in your app. regardless of how they map to a Salesforce. Oftentimes with integration, the biggest challenge is not the technical connecting things up. It's who actually do I go to?
Yes,
No, I know.
who do I talk to?
Who do I talk
That's
to?
the real
what he was trying to get
conversation,
to.
right?
Yeah.
That's the real
I know where he was
conversation.
going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like who can tell me what the correct API is to call?
Right.
Who can give me the endpoint? Who can
And
give
the
me the
security.
endpoint for the dev environment, the staging environment, the production
Right.
environment? How do I get the token? How do I do
Right.
this SAML hookup? Like that's actually where all the time is spent. So yeah, I think there's got to be something that we can bring in that will again bring that stuff
conversation,
forward.
right? And this is my concern is you speed up the front end of everything, but the actual getting into production still.
And I think
Right.
this goes to kind of the core of the theme of this series around solution design and not
Right.
just like hands on keyboard doing it.
Yeah.
Is like the designing, we're going to need these integrations. Who the hell do I talk to?
Right,
Like,
right.
Like that type of thing. It's like that's why we were going to still need humans and we're still going to need that connection. You can't just go build it yourself and like AI is going to solve it for you. That's why solution design is the experience, but then also the technical, like that we're bringing it together now because you need to think about those things.
So you're telling me I can't vibe code integration and just like, come on, man. Like
We're getting there.
Oh, like
It's coming. It's the future. Yeah, I mean, the one thing you can do with AI currently is it'll do automatic mapping for you from one schema to another.
Yes,
That's
yes.
pretty
I've seen
straightforward.
some of that. That's very cool.
But yeah, let me give you another example. So we've seen multiple clients have success this year building blueprints, doing a small iteration, and getting through those integrations, the security challenges, getting the single sign-on set up, all that, building out the business logic in some cases, which you still can't quite do in Blueprint, and still get live in less than 30, 40 days.
Yep.
So by doing all that work up front, you are compressing the whole schedule because you're figuring out what do we want. The solution designer role is so important because it frames the solution for everyone.
Yes.
Yep.
Right? And being able to have, the visual aid of the workflow, the visual aid of what the experience is going to look like across channels, gets everyone thinking. And then, like I said, the threat of actually, oh, wait, we're going to go live with this, gets everybody saying, wait, I have some changes I want to make, or I've got some input I want to have. We haven't seen the integration piece be a huge bottleneck. It does take time, and it usually is the time that we're just talking about, like
finding
the logistics of
100%.
finding the people and getting permission
and the layers of it.
all that kind of stuff. It tends to be the challenge, and it can be unpredictable. Sometimes we're being asked to integrate with systems that don't yet have APIs because some other parallel project, somebody's working on building that API and it's not ready yet.
Right, and that's really, but it's interesting because I think what you're saying about the solution designer too is like a BA, business analyst, trying to hunt the stuff down, usually is not going to get there.
They don't know the right questions to ask.
Right, questions, whereas solution designer in that process has to be able to go, has to have influence, can drive decisions, and actually get to a conclusion that's aligned with value. That's what I'm hearing you say is, forget about the tech. It's actually the role, and that role specifically, bringing everybody to the table.
Totally. And as we've been saying for the past 15 years, bringing IT and business together
I know. BT
is always been the biggest challenge. So the solution designer role, whether it's someone that has an IT background or a business background,
That person.
you have to have an awareness at the very least of like, how am I going to get the business on board? How am I going to understand what's truly needed for these users? And on the other side, how am I going to get all the technical requirements that are going to be required to get this thing actually live? But as I mentioned earlier, having a short timeline, 30, 45 days, something like that, and the threat of implementation forces the issue to say, we can't do it without getting this information. Whereas if you say, 6-month time frame, you're going to wait like 4 months before you even go ask for those endpoints. And it just delays everything.
One thing I can already hear some of my LSA friends, right? These lead system architects saying, all this stuff sounds great. Actually, one of our LSAs actually said this, right? All this stuff sounds great, but if you don't have an LSA in the middle of this, you're just going to be creating so much technical debt, you'll never dig yourself out of it. And I'm curious, how do you think about this conversation around tech debt tied to, leveraging tools like Blueprint to build, right? Like, how do you think about preventing tech debt, essentially, or minimizing the potential? Yeah.
Sure. So, the role of the lead system architect has to change going forward, right?
So you're telling me
Yeah. Well, we need all their technical depth and their skills and their experience, but we need people using those skills toward delivering real value as opposed to building the perfect architecture that's going to ultimately scale in some theoretical end state where every department in the organization is built on this same system kind of. People have really great technical skills, building integrations, building complex business logic, all of that. What we're actually asking for these days is keep this system as simple as possible. Right. The new UI design system and technology and framework that we put together a couple years ago called Constellation is specifically about keeping it simple. We saw year over year so many situations where people had great intentions where they were like, oh no, our business process is unique, or our needs are unique, our users are unique, so we're going to build this custom thing, and then only to a couple years later go, why did we do that again? And no one can remember. And you try to flip it back out of the box so that it's less maintenance. So the Blueprint is doing this. Constellation is doing this. App Studio is doing this, trying to keep everyone right down the middle. It's hard because of what's possible with the tool. Everyone wants to customize. But the closer you can keep it to down the middle, and sometimes when you compress your time frame, that's the right driver to say, oh, I don't have time to customize. I have to do this.
Well, sorry, not to interrupt you, but it's like, why are you customizing this? Do you absolutely need to? Like, it's not because you can, should you?
No, I said, even in product development, I tell people all the time, what if you had to deliver this next week? Customization is the first thing to go out the window.
Right. Again, value. Are you getting more value from doing all of the changes in the customization, or is the value for efficiency of people getting through what they need to get done? And that's what we're trying to deliver and focus people on. So I think embrace that.
I think what's interesting too is that conversation I think is now dead, right? Meaning I think about clients in the past 3-4 years ago that were like, I don't want to use Pega's out of the box UI. I don't want to do, you had different toolkits at the time, right? And they were like, we want full control over how it looks, right? And I don't hear clients having that conversation, which I think you guys, Pega, help with that. But I think you're right. A lot of this now is if you're really just focused on what color something is, right?
Question.
Or some of these other esoteric conversations around UI, if you're focused on that, you're kind of missing it, because even the UI itself, now you're building agents where it ain't about a color.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Or you building interfaces to agents where it's really more about the conversation, or what does it bring back? I think I probably overshare, but I have NVIDIA stock, right? And I've just been loving NVIDIA's going up, right? And I bought it actually.
How can you afford it?
No, but the thing that's crazy is my dad actually bought NVIDIA 4 or 5 years ago when it was before.
Oh boy.
Right?
Ooh,
and I was just,
AI.
I was just like, you know what? I'm going to pick up on his lead and just, whatever. But I started thinking about where is NVIDIA going? And, obviously stock's kind of weird right now, but what's been interesting is, and I actually talked to ChatGPT about this for stock tips, right? And I was like, so why is NVIDIA kind of stalling out? Because it really is kind of plateauing. It's everything is moving towards workflows when it comes to AI. I was like, right? And it's
Thanks,
that actually
ChatGPT.
makes sense,
There we
right?
go, yeah.
And that's where long way to say, I do think people are waking up to the reality that it's not about the user interface. It's about the workflow, the interaction. How do I actually orchestrate better, which we've been around this for so long that for us, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. We've been doing this for 20 years, right? Yeah. And so I'm curious, like, how do you see even the world of kind of AI shifting? Like, you were at reInvent. Mm-hmm. Like, AWS is obviously talking about some things, but, like, how do you see it shifting to the world that Pega plays in, that we play in?
Yeah, very much. So you made a couple of great points there about the user interface should not be the focus, because tomorrow you might be executing that same piece of functionality, workflow, application using a chatbot. Right. So if you're fussing about the UI, like the channel shouldn't matter. And that's actually been one of the brilliant things about Blueprint is you can put it right in front of people to say, look, here's what it might look like on a desktop. Here's the mobile app. Here's embedded in Salesforce. Here's the self-service view, and here's the agentic view.
And I think that blows people's minds.
Oh, yeah. And what if you just call the number and talk? Now you're talking to your workflow. That's the most basic interface that you can get to. Yeah. And it has to be center out in order for that to work. Yep. And it's a great complement to Constellation, because Constellation's all about center out. You can't build business logic in the UI layer. So that's huge. The second part of your question.
No,
again,
I know I throw a lot, but yeah.
It was
focused on, like, how do you see AI shifting?
Right.
Like, it's been all about this hardware conversation. Now it's shifting to workflows where.
Got it. Yeah. So you were teeing me up perfectly for Pega's differentiation, and I dropped the ball.
No,
so,
it's good.
It's
good.
one thing.
Sorry, I'm like, my coffee's kicked in, right? I'm just like, hey.
No, that was great.
Go.
So, I was at reInvent. Everyone's talking about agents, agentic workflows even. But they mean agentic workflows in very different ways, right? They sort of range from what we do at Pega, and like this is what you would see maybe from other enterprise vendors, where they're like, workflow is about driving enterprise business workloads to done. Yeah. And we're trying to be like, you can use agents to help you do that. Right. A lot of these workflows that people are talking about are like developer workflows, like help me writing code into a IDE, getting that compiled, tested, pushed through a pipeline. That's my workflow. And we're going to have an agentic workflow for that. So the market is very confused right now because that agentic workflow makes no sense to the business. Right. Whereas like the agentic workflows that we're talking about, which are very business workload centric, may not make a lot of sense to like a programmer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's confused. Everyone is trying to build chatbots. Like chatbot equals agent.
Right.
Chatbot equals AI almost.
This ChatGPT effect.
Yeah. So people are not thinking beyond what AI can do for them, beyond just like having a chat with something like whether it's vibe coding chat or like a chat that drives a workflow, et cetera. What we're seeing is the predictability of a business process has to be there, right? And so by having defined workflows, like as a solution designer can build in Blueprint, that ensures that you're using AI at design time to build out the right workflows. So AI is being leveraged heavily, but you're saying that's what I actually need as the consistent process that every loan request or complaint or customer service inquiry is going to go through. I'm going to use the AI to figure out which of those things to do, and then if it's an agentic chat, great, it'll walk you through that workflow, but it will do it the same every time.
Consistent process, yeah.
And the trap that everyone seems to be falling into, I saw it over and over again at these breakouts and at the booths at AWS, is that people are trying to prompt their way through it. They're just going to write really clever prompts and say, well, don't hallucinate and don't ever tell me anything that's not true. And like just over and over again, trying to find ways to get the AI to do what they want. Yeah. And the net result is you get inconsistency, and you can't have that in real hardcore enterprise business situations. So workflows are critical. designing your workflows with AI is great. Executing those workflows at runtime in a consistent way, I think, is hugely important. Use AI to drive them if you need to, and you can preview that with Blueprint, right? Agentic chat, talk to the thing. So yeah, I think the rest of the sort of business community, tech community at large is going to start to come around. We're seeing it already. We're seeing it with Microsoft. We're seeing it a little bit with ServiceNow, the messaging that you're seeing from Salesforce. They went hardcore. It's all agents, and now they're like, well, you need agents to drive your worworkflows. Right. And I wish they hadn't figured that out yet, and I hope they continue to not do great at it. But because that's what we do, and that's where we started.
The sweet spot.
Because we said there's stuff that just has to work the same every time, and that doesn't mean AI is out of the picture. Right. It just means you have to use it appropriately, and I think a great way to check that out is a Blueprint, right? And Pega.com/blueprint.
We'll edit that part out. No. No, this is good. I mean, yeah.
No, I think this was great. And kind of to wrap that up, you talked about with the solution designer understanding AI, where to use it, understanding the workflows, and then understanding the business with the AI and where to use what. So I think, again, it's not just about AI. It's about everything that feeds into to create value, which is kind of the theme. So I think if I were to do one thing to sum it up to make, because we're at time.
Oh, wow. This is good. Thank you.
Of course,
Steve. It's been really great reconnecting with you.
Thank you,
good
Steph.
conversation,
Right.
Mr. Bixby. All right.
Yep. All right.
So
good. All right.
We're off.
We're off for this one,
thank you
and
again.
one more to come. So see you all soon.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Design to Accelerate.
This is a space for thoughtful conversations about how people, not just technology, create value.
When we let human judgment lead and AI accelerate, better outcomes always follow.
Follow and subscribe to keep engaging in this meaningful conversation.